Hello. Hi. Hello. Am I audible?
Yeah. Yeah. Hi, good morning.
Hello. Good
Good
morning.
morning.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get started then. Maybe let's not wait it any. Okay. Just the one thing. Please try to join on time. That also helps everyone, right? Since we all had been waiting. So that's just a pointer I just wanted to make to you guys. Okay. Let's not waste any more time. Let's get started. So, so last day we were mostly talking about the networking part, right? If do you have any questions on that? Yes, no, maybe.
Some basics on AWS networking.
Sorry.
Some knowledge on basic knowledge, like what is VPC, gateways.
Yeah. So yesterday, last session you joined, right? So okay, I'll just give you a quick walkthrough, right? You joined the last session, correct?
No, Friday I missed the session, but no, I have some knowledge on basic
Okay.
GCP and also AWS.
Okay. So the same thing is there. And what about you, Uvarasu, right? If I'm getting your name correctly,
Yes,
you
Akash.
are
Okay.
okay with.
Already. Yes.
Ah,
From AWS. Okay. I was last 10 years from working for AWS from DevOps admin.
okay, good enough.
GCP is new for this.
Okay, so you joined last day?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll quickly give you a walkthrough what we discussed for Zahir and then we'll go ahead. Okay, so we were mostly talking about what is a VPC and why would we need a VPC because you have been using AWS, so you must be aware of why that is required, right? Let's not take up much time on that. Post that, then we were discussing on about subnets, right? My slides are visible, correct?
Yes,
I
Akash.
think yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So next we were talking about why is do we have the requirements of VPC subnets, right? Otherwise, there would be a we cannot segregate our resources. So for that was the predominant reason why we need subnets, right? And also to make our bigger CIDR ranges into smaller compartments, we were using subnets. That's fine. And then VPC had a few restrictions. Is that not a restriction? I would say it's a way a bit different from AWS. If you can distinguish that in the sense of that the VPCs over here do not is a global resource. They are not tied to any region. So only your subnets when you are creating subnets, your subnets will have a region, right? So this is one thing you need to remember. And the mode in which you can create a VPC, it's on two modes. One is a auto mode and one is a custom mode. So what do I mean by auto mode is if by auto mode, GCP does give you does create the VPC for you and also attaches the subnets for all the regions where Google's data centers are present. Let's say it is now across 33 different regions, so it will create 33 different subnets for you, right? So, and if you are going for a custom VPC, then you can control more on your regions on which you want to provision your subnets on, right? That gives you a more uh, advantage on, let's say, the security part, right? So, and that's also the one of the ways we should work on with our production systems, right? And then I was discussing about the CIDR ranges, right? Because that is one of the predominant thing that we need to consider while we are spinning up a VPC, right? Because we do not want our VPCs to have unnecessary wastage of IPs. So that is what I was discussing on. So just a quick thing to ask, you guys know of CIDR ranges or how it works? Do you need to design that? Yes, no, maybe.
I know, Akash.
Zahir?
And I don't remember exactly how to read about it, not
Okay,
exactly how
okay.
it was.
Okay, so yeah, okay, then I'll help you to understand because you need to understand this part. That's because one of the most favorable things to know. Okay, I will not take much time in explaining this because it should be a bit basic. Yeah, we need to discuss this. Okay, so what does CIDR stands for? CIDR stands for classless interdomain routing, and why that is required? That is required to actually uh, give our resources an IP, right? And for our VPC, we need to tell it what is the range that it should follow. Okay, so now we know that at the end of the day, it's the IPs that are communicating, right? So, second, where is is my screen blinking a lot? Okay, so what is a CIDR then? CIDR stands for classless interdomain routing. And then what do I mean by how do you compose that? So we basically, if you have seen a typical IPv4 address, so then you must have noticed that it runs in the series of, let's say an example, 10.0.0.0, right? And then, so what do I mean by that 10.0.0.0? I'm just opening Paint for you. Why is it blinking like that? No idea. Okay, Paint is not moving. So we have in the range, let's say an example 10.0.0.0, right? So what does this denomination stands for? So it's basically 4 octets, right? So what do I mean by octet? Octet means 8. So it is 4 octet. So one each, 1 octet, second octet, third octet, 4 octet, right? So it is 4 octets combined together, each having 8 bits. So one octet will have 8 bits, so it makes it up of 32 bits. So this entire address is a 32-bit address, right? And when you want to make your, because your computer or your assembly languages do not understand what is 10, right? Or what if you put numbers, let's say 172 or 1 or 32, it does not understand that, right? So it only understands 0 or 1, right? So I have to draw the diagram, otherwise it is not working. Why I'll make it more easier then. I did not want to firstly go ahead with this, but please take a note of this website. Okay, that will make make it more easier for you guys to understand. Okay, so what's the idea I was telling you? So it is 4 different octets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and each octet will have 8 bits, right? And it starts from 0 to, and it ranges from 255, right? And how do we come to this 0 and 255 numbers? Because it works in the series of 2 to the power 0. It starts from, it's in this order, left to right. So it starts from 2 to the power 0, 2 to the power 1, 2 to the power 8. It extends up to 2 to the power 8, right? So that is 2 to the power 8 is 256. So that is how the number comes 0 to 255, right? But here is one thing that you need to remember. You cannot use 256. Why? That is again a question that gets mostly asked. It might be very rudimentary or fundamental, but definitely gets asked. You cannot use 256 because we start from 0. We do not start from 1. That is the reason 0 to, if you take the count of 256, it ends up to 255. Okay, just keep it on your radar, right? Okay, apart from that, how is this, if I take a typical example of number 10, how it is getting converted into 0 and 1, if you can think of 2 to the power 0 is 0, 2 to the power 1 is 2, 2 to the power 2 is again 0, and 2 to the power 3 is which is 8 in 1, right? So what do I mean? How is that working? So the bits in which you want a number or a uh, number to be expressed, you put it as 1, and the others which you don't require, you keep it as 0, right? So that is how you take up the number denomination, and those get converted into the 0 and 1 assembly language, right? So that is how it typically works. But the main point is this part, right? There is another term or another number that you put after that slash. This slash after what you put is a routing prefix. What do I mean by that? It helps you to define the entire range of addresses, network addresses that you will be having, right? So as I was telling you, 1, 2, 3, 4, it stands totally up to 32 bits. So my maximum or my minimum range will be 2 to the power 32, right? Now, if I bring it down to 20, if I need, I've put a range of 31. So how many IPs will I have to, how many IPs do I have in the address range to use? That would be 1. How do I come to that number 1? Because you know that the entire series is the 32-bit series, right? And when I bring it down to 1, it's 32 minus 31 is 1, right? So now think it of you as a whole number, you get 1, but you need to think it again in terms of power of 2, right? So 32 minus 31 is 1. And when you take 2 to the power, so the difference basically is 2 to the power 1. So 2 to the power 1 will be 2, right? Yes, so you will have 2 IPs to consider. So you see the count is 2. Because I'm just doing it in a pictorial thing, just try to visualize in this way. But you need to have it hands-on a pen and paper, right? Because I was trying to open Paint, not sure why it is not working correctly. So just try to visualize that, right? So now if I put, let's say 27, so now you can see the count is changing, right? It's coming to 32. So you need to understand how this count of 32 is coming. That's the first part of the equation. And second is how can you change the IPs? Okay. And so let's see. Numbers are very big.
So it's
So
2 to the power of 5, 32. That,
yes, correct. But in again, in AWS, you might have restrictions of using IPs. Let's say AWS takes up 5 IPs from you, correct? Because you cannot, if 32 out of
Yes,
32
Akash.
IPs, you
Okay.
can, yes, out of 32 IPs, if you can only, if you take out 5, you can use uh, 26, right? Or no,
Yes, that is for
27.
the
But
reserved IP address.
correct,
That's for five.
correct, yes,
Okay,
correct.
same thing. Same thing in GCP also. For it is
No,
taking the reserved IP
GCP
address.
does not take, no, GCP does only take one IP out of it, and rest you can
Okay.
utilize it. So that's an advantage over it. Okay. So you need to understand this, and just another thing you notice of this one, right? So when I when I have a count of 32, right? Just look at the block bits or the octets which can change. Don't think, I mean, it works from again left to right. So the first you will start with left, first octet, second octet, third octet, fourth octet. So when you have a count of 32, means you can only, means bandwidth that into the first octet, right? You do not require the other octets. So those remain constant for you, right? The only IP changes that you can have is on the last octet bit, right? So let's say it can range up to 0 to 31, right? So if I put 1, you see it is changing on these bits, right? Now if I put, let's say 20, I can also work with that, right? It does changes. Now let's try 255. Here though it will give you, but it does not work, right? Because we are exceeding the count. You understood, right? What I am trying to let you know. Okay, if you've got that, then let's Do you have any doubts in this? Because this is one of the things that you'll be requiring why you are also dividing your breaking down your VPCs into subnets too. Because for private subnet, and if you know of the terms private and public subnets, your public subnets can be a bit can contain a bit less IPs, because the external resources which you use in your VPC won't be much of a count. So that is the reason don't use up much IPs for your public subnet. But when you are defining your private subnets, try to keep a longer range of IPs, because that would be the first base or base mode of communication for your Google Cloud resources, right? So typically what I was telling you, I'll show you, and that is why I did not show that to you last day. And you can use this extensively. That in chat. Okay, so Zahid, I guess you missed yesterday's last day session. So GCP does give you a default one. Now it ranges across 39 different regions. So you have 39 subnets created for you, and it is created in auto mode, right? So that is the reason why you have all the regions in which a subnet is placed, right? But now we also worked on creating a private sub VPC network for ourselves. So in that scenario, we were defining the subnet ranges, because here you don't have to define a VPC range like how you do it in AWS, and then you segregate that into smaller different subnets. We don't work it in that way in VPC. So that also gives you a less tasks to work on, right? Let's say VPC test one. So now how do I want to do it? If I do it auto, then all it will get auto created. And if I do it custom, let's take an address from them. And if I do it on custom, so you have to go and add a subnet, put a name to it, subnet one. And the most important thing is the region. So maybe I use a US East one. And then the type of IP stack that you want to use, IPv4, IPv6. So you give that, and you put your range, right? And now you can this is an range that you must be checking also with your network administrators or your organizational security team. uh so if you cannot use the same series, that's one thing. If another subnet is using, let's say, 140.0.0 of 20, then that range is already exhausted for you. You cannot use that. So if it is giving an error, please do check on the other VPCs that are already created in your organization, right? And this one would be, yeah, whether you want your external resources when they are trying to access your VMs or other Google resources, whether you want them to be connecting via private IPs, right? So let's say I, as an external user, wants to communicate with your VM on a Google API. So do you want that communication to be on a private IP? So if you have that criteria to get sorted out, then you need to definitely click on and enable. Otherwise, you can keep it off. And flow logs is self-explanatory. So if you want to store your VPC logs, then please do keep it on. And then you have to attach a cloud storage bucket. So we have sessions on that. I'll show you. And then you also the main good pointer over it is you don't have to define your buckets. The bucket will get auto created, and you just only tell him the time interval on how much you want means after how much frequency or interval you want those logs to flow and get monitored. So in that way, the metadata will get stored in your buckets. For now, I don't want to use that. Okay, and if you have, let's say, this is one subnet that I have defined. If you have multiple subnets to get defined, you can put it in that way, right? And that goes along. Okay, I hope you understood this part. I'll come to firewalls in the next part, so you can keep it on and then you just create it. Okay, there was another term that's known as MTU. So if you have not joined again on the last class, MTU stands for maximum transmission unit. What do I mean by that is you can define the maximum packets of data that can be transferred or that is allowed in for communication or transfer inside your VPC, right? So we generally tend to keep it at default values. That is one that is the maximum value that they have used. But in if you have any use cases where in production you need to increase this bandwidth, you can do that. Or if you do not want to allow so much higher data to be transmitted in each communication, you can also lower it. I would refer you, GCP does have good use case related uh, numbers, so you can follow that. But we generally don't do much of dynamic changes into this one, right? So, and then you create that. Okay, very good. That's one. Okay, we have got a very live example. Oh, I have it another. Remove it. Okay, actually, I had that already carried upon. Okay, let's move ahead to our next topic. Okay, we talked about CIDRs. Now let's move ahead. I had typical questions for CIDRs, but as you know, I will not go much deep into that, right? Okay, so apart from that, there's a few conventions or naming conventions industry does follow. So they do follow private IP ranges that you will be seeing in will be in the series of 10, 10 to the 10.0.0 or 192.168.0.0. The shared address works with the IP ranges mostly were 100.64 in the series of that, and the IETF protocols work with the 192 series. Those would be mainly what I can say is your home networks or those, right? And what do I mean by RFC? It's request for comments. These are the protocols that has been defined for your address ranges to get have certain protocols when they are defined. So this is a more of a network engineer thing. So we do not need to know much on this, but at least you need to know if you get if you see an IP, let's say 10.0.0, you must know that what kind of IP it is, right? Whether it's a private IP or a home network IP. And that scenario I just gave you that example. Okay, and then there are a few again restrictions on the CIDRs which you can define for your subnets. Is you cannot define a localhost subnet like 127.0.0.0/8, that you cannot define, and then the local network or the uh, entire network also you cannot give of 0.0.0/8. These are the restrictions that you do have. And Google Cloud also take up few private virtual IPs of 199 and 199.36.153.4 and 8. So if even if you use this, they will not allow you to spin up your subnets, right? Okay, and one more major problem that I also discussed is, let's say if you have exhausted your IP ranges, please do go and add a secondary CIDR block that will help you to solve the problem. And where do you add it? So I had already shown you that go to the subnet add a subnet range and then add a region and then add a external or secondary CIDR block to it, and that way you solve the problem. Okay, so next would be mostly firewalls, right? So what is a firewall? If you have used security groups in AWS, you must be aware, you must be knowing the concept of security group. So security groups are basically stateful sort of security that stateful sets of rules that we follow is we tend to work on the traffic moving in and traffic moving out. So what do I mean by stateful? Stateful means your traffic will get inspected when it is going inside, and when because you have allowed that, there is no restriction on the traffic that will come out from your internal resources, right? So these what I mean is a stateful. And what do I mean by a stateless? Stateless would be in both ways, the traffic going in and the traffic coming out will, you can put boundaries or restrictions to or I would say in generic terms, rules to it. So a typical example would be NACL that you use it over there, right? But here it's only mostly stateful or firewall rules that you will be mostly using, right? So it's works on the same analogy that you use it over in AWS, is that you have to give it a port, a protocol, and then you have to typically tell it that whether you are allowing or denying that. I'll show you also. And then there is one more thing of priority, right? So zero stands to be the highest priority, and there is again a number given, that is 65535. That is of the least priority. So if you have 10 firewall rules in any, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so 5 will have the least, means if all are same mostly, then 5 will have the least priority, and it comes and it goes upwards, right? And so one will be given more priority and those rules will be evaluated first, right? So there are when you are creating a VPC, so to help you with your quick setup, GCP does give you with some default VPC firewall rules, is that it gives you a TCP on port 22 on for which you can do an SSH. It also gives you an RDP port, and it allows default ICMP, and also the internal net, if your resources are inside the same VPC, they can communicate internally using their private IP. So that is also given to you by default, right? Uh, and to further break it down, if I tell you again, firewall rules are divided into two parts. One is ingress and one is egress. So ingress is the traffic is coming in, and egress would stand for traffic is going out, right? So you can put separate rules to it, and so show you how you can do that. And what is the advantage of doing that? Let's say I have spin up, I'll give you a typical example because you all know of AWS, right? So that makes it more easier for me to help you. And so let's say I have a VM or an EC2 instance, and I have also spin up a RDS, right? But now if I want to make that RDS communicate with my EC2 or my VM, uh, so in that scenario, I have to open the security group ports to that. That is how you did it in your AWS, right? So likewise, again, you in the same way, just think it of if you have a Cloud SQL and a VM over here, so you need to open the ports of that, so that they can access one another, right? So that is how the typically it works over here also, right? And for that, you must be also knowing there is again two terms for ingress. You need to define where should a target and a source. Target would be where the traffic is going to land or the destination, and source would be typically from where your traffic is coming. Here are multiple, what I can say, options given to you. You can let's not take it on this. When I show it directly, it makes more sense. And egress would be again a target and a destination. And apart from that, each rule has few other terminologies that I've already mentioned, that port, the protocol, the priority, and then there is enforcement status that is given, let's say, for a particular point of time. If you want to disable or that rule, you can just click, it's a one click button, you enable or disable it. Let's say you disable it, and let's say you have done with your testing and you now want to again enable it, just go ahead and enable it, right? This is how that it works. Okay, let me go back to my screen. Okay, so let's just go into one, and then we will create a firewall for ourselves, right? So typically, where you are defining that. So if you want to check that what is the firewall rules that is there for your VPC, click on your go to your VPC and hover to your, there would, the first column would be subnet, so you'll be able to check what is your subnets, and then hover to your firewalls, right? This is where you typically see what is the firewall attached for your VPC, right? So in my VPC, I do have four rules that are attached to that, and it has a rule priority number that I was referring to you. So it has an RDP, it has an SSH. So if I attach this to a, let's say, a Linux box, so I will be able to do an SSH on port 22. If I again attach the same VPC to a VM having a Windows OS, I will be able to do an RDP to it. So this is how typically it works. So if I go into one of them, so you can see we have the priorities given. It's the direction to which it should work. Ingress, so ingress means inbound. What is the action that is that will work on it, whether it's an explicit allow, an explicit deny, and then the port and the protocol, right? It's a TCP on 3389. And what is the source that is given? It can come from any IP ranges, right? So 0.0.0.0 slash of 0 means any IPs. There is no restriction to the source address, right? Typically it looks like. And let's say if you want to now change anything, you can just hit on that edit button and we can work on it, right? If you want to, let's say, add a one more thing to it, UDP, you can add a UDP port. If you have some other, let's say, RDS port to be opened, right, or let's say 5432, you can also uh, use that and just save that. Yes, this is where I was mentioning that enforcement disable or enable, right? So let's say for me, I do not want to currently use this rule, right? I, for some test, quickly come here and disable this, right? And it's done. So you are presently for your testing, this rule will not be evaluated, right? And let's say once you are done with your testing, you can come back and again enable that, right? This is on a typical example. If you have a firewall already existing for you, now let's take up a new, create a new one, right? So this GCP does give you with this pre-existing rules that does help you to at least solve a couple of problems. Now if you have your external rules that you want to create, you can definitely go ahead and create that, right? Just one more thing. 65535, where are those two rules? Okay, yeah, just one more thing before I create a new rule. Let me go one step back. Firewalls. 65535. Is it there? Okay, it's not there. Then that's fine. Because if you are also, because why I was looking into that, GCP does give you with two default rules, that is one ingress that will allow apply to all, and one egress that will allow apply to all. What do I mean is, even if you are not defining your explicit firewall rules, GCP does give you with two default rules you cannot go ahead and delete, right? So it is the accept all ingress or allow all ingress and deny all ingress, right? So it means it's a group or a VPC which will have mostly everything open to it unless and until you put restrictions onto it, right? That is what I wanted to tell you. So now we'll create a firewall. Let's say firewall, my test firewall. Naming can be anything. Use for RDS ports. Uh, Priority can be anything based on how many rules you are using. Yeah, now the main point comes in is that the direction of traffic, right? This is where the conditions comes more handy. So if I go with ingress, so now you can specifically define. So in AWS, if you know, you have to you can also select, right, the if it's an SSH, HTTPS, and all those, right? But here again, the categorization is a bit different. So, where do you want to take this on the target? Do you have some specific tags for those resources, or you want it on a specified service account? So, what is a service account? Just to give you an high level, service account are automation accounts that work in behalf of you in maintaining or on working or in any cloud compute instances. You can take it as an example of an IAM role. In that scenario, it does work in analogy, right? So when we talk about, or when we discuss IAMs, we will definitely speak on service accounts, right? Just to give you a higher understanding of the service account. So that is how this can be filtered upon. So for now, let's take it on all instances in the network. And then from where is your again source IP coming? So is it coming on a IPv4 range? Is it on IPv6? Source tags again you can mention if you want to target particular resources, and again service accounts, right? So let's be again generic. I'll put it /a dot allow on and then just create it, right? Okay, but now what there is one thing. Let's say if you have a use case where you need to attach the firewall, then creating only a firewall does not attach it directly for you, right? So for that scenario, you have to go to your particular VPCs on which you want to attach that firewall and have it attached, right? So this is one thing you also need to remember when you are working with it, right? Any doubts up till now, or else I'll move on. I know these are a bit fundamentals because you have used already AWS, but yeah. Any doubts up till now? Anyone? Hello.
No, Akash.
Okay, great. Okay, so next I just move uh, on to two other major things. Okay, so what is okay? Let's take a scenario example of Okay. Does anyone want to do a bit of a hands-on? Anyone from you guys? Yes, no, maybe. A quick hands-on test and a problem to solve. That will make our understanding more clearer. Anyone?
Sure, Akash.
Okay. Can you share your screen? I'll spin up two VMs quickly.
Yes.
I'll make you a
Okay.
present.
Yes. My screen is visible to you, right?
Yes, it's visible to me, and I guess it's visible to everyone also. If it is. Okay. Now I'll just guide you to quickly set up two VMs, right? Quickly go to compute engine, virtual machines, VMs, yes. So what we will do for this hands-on is quickly we will spin up two VMs. Okay, first tell me how many VPCs do you have? Can you open a duplicate session?
I think I have three.
You have three, then that's
Yes.
fine. Open also VPC in this one.
Yes.
Okay. So what we will do is we will create an, a compute engine on default VPC, and we will again create a VPC on a compute engine on my VPC. Okay, this is the first task that we will be working upon. Can you go to
Okay, we need
your
to okay, we need to connect with the VPC peering, right?
yes, we will talk about VPC
Okay.
peering then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Shall I give any name, right? Just I'm giving
Anything is
for
fine. Just
default name. Default.
uh, yes, anything is fine. Just quickly spin up two VMs and just
Region for any region.
yes, because
Region.
you have no what I see for your VPC. These are the questions that you need to ask yourselves now because I have already spoken, so I'll help you understand. What do I mean by regions now is because we will be using a default VPC and you have seen that the default VPC was created on auto mode, and so as a result it has all the regions that now GCP is covering, right? So you can select any regions, but when you are using your custom VPCs, you might want to restrict your resources to one particular resource, like how I created it for US East 1. So that is the reason why when and why you need to then think it off, right? So you need to able to understand this. Yeah.
Yes.
So any region is fine for you.
Because is there
That those
any
regions are
free tier eligible?
uh, you
Can
are
I
not
change this
using a
or
free tier account.
no? I'm the free tier.
If you are using a free tier account, then that does not make much difference. You can use anything.
Okay.
Yeah,
Standard
this will
only.
be. Scroll down. We have to just change the networking part. That's it for now. Go to advanced. Yes. Scroll down. There is that networking. Select that. Scroll down. No, these are the names and tags. We have to change only the VPC, right? Ah, so
Default.
we are using default. That's fine. So now quickly go ahead and create it. And again, create a new instance. Okay, for you, I have again couple of things that we will again learn in this. Put a name corresponds to your
Instance two.
VPC. No, instead of that, it will help you to identify, right, when we are doing that hovering. Go to your VPC once, yeah,
Yes.
my VPC, right? So you can put it instance my VPC, something like that. So it becomes also relatable when you are working with your instances, right? And same thing, I think you should also follow uh, in your industry or your organization. My instance, my VPC instance here. Put an hyphen. in between. Yeah. Now again, okay, one more thing. Okay, we will talk about it later. Yeah, go ahead, please. Go ahead. Uh, just when
Just
you
I'm
talk
checking
about
okay which region it is created.
it's again, no, no, no. You don't have to go in now again. Can you come back?
Yes.
No, go back to your VPC. I'll help it for everyone. Come back. One step back in this, please. Yeah. So on the very first page, if you are just doing it right, you can see there are a few metrics given to you, right? You can see the mode as auto, right? When you see the mode as auto, so it generally means your VPC is created across all GCP regions, right? So you can see the default is having 39 regions as 39 subnets. So 39 subnets is spread across 39 regions. And again, my VPC is uh, also in 39 regions. So it's in auto mode, right? So GCP has created this for you. With me on this? Hello?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Now you can go back and just change your VPC from networking. Go to your compute engine. Yeah, scroll down. Networking. Yes, scroll down. Above.
Yeah.
Yeah, network interface. Yes, network. My VPC. Subnetwork, it already picked it up, right?
Yes.
Or if you want to, because okay, now just hold on a bit. Why this picked up? Because, and what does it correspond to? Because you have mentioned a region above, right? And your subnet is also present in that region. That is the reason why it automatically picked up, right? We will also
Yes.
see later on why and what kind of challenge you'll be facing if you don't have a subnet in that region which you have specified above, right? That is again for another topic. But now, for now, please go ahead. You understood, right? What is the
Yes.
main function of that second subnetwork part? How and how is that
Yes.
data getting populated? Yeah, that's
Sure.
important. Okay, let that come up. Okay, for now, let that come up. You try to do an SSH into the first instance. How can you do that? You No, there's a right hand side. You can go and connect that. Go to your top right of your screen of that instance one. Right. Yes. No, not that. There's another connect column you're seeing.
Yes.
Yes.
From
So
browser or
yes, do it from a browser. That will become easier for now. Open in browser window. So it's trying to do an SSH on port 22. A good part is you don't have had to also keep a keys under your protection,
yes.
and but if you have that requirement you can also do that, but for now authorize it because you are the owner. Will ask you for it will automatically take your metadata. Okay, can you maximize this screen once?
Yeah.
Just try to check what is the IP of this machine. Yes, it's if config if. That's fine. If. Yes.
Yes.
Ifconfig. Ah, that's also
No,
not.
we need to,
That's
no, the type is not that. Okay, we need to install it. IP config.
I guess they do give you, but that's fine. Now just minimize the screen once. Yeah, try to SSH on the your second instance now. Uh, okay. Can you identify the problem? Okay, first let it work up and see what is happening.
So this VM is connected through the Google API, the external user,
Sorry,
right? No, this VM is connected to the external user, right? It is a
external
private.
user mean
So I'm the external user for this VM, right?
okay, but you are also the external user for the first VM also, correct or wrong?
Yes. No, it's
So
correct.
how did okay? So my follow-up would be means you don't have any problem, right? If I ask you questions, because in that way
Yes,
only
sure,
I
sure,
think
sure.
yes, we will have that understanding, right? And these are the typical problems that we'll generally face. So I do not want to make it more theoretical and fundamental way. So that's my way of doing it. Okay. So I'll just help you to answer with your questions only. So you told me that it's an external user. So how did your other VM connect? Because the properties of your user was same for your other one was also correct. You have
Yes. Yes. First, okay. From the default VPC, okay, it's automatically created by security group, okay, from the Google. Okay, this is for my customized VPC. Okay,
mm,
this VPC also it's automatically created for ingress rule and all. Same, right? There is no any blocking, right?
no, yes, you were very near. I was expecting you because you went very near to your answer, but again you went a bit diverted, right? So here is one point. Does anyone wants to try this answering to this question? Why is this not connecting and why did the other connect? We were using the default auto mode uh, GCP VPCs, right? Anyone wants
Yes.
to take a try on this? Yes, no, maybe.
Okay, from there, okay, I think
Zahir or Shishir, right? If I get the name correctly. Do you guys know or are understanding my question, what I'm asking?
think
Mhm.
okay from this VPC, okay, we should enable for the Google Assistant, right? No, that means the Google Access, the checkbox we should enable, right?
No, not that. Think it off in a topic that I just today taught you. I'll just give you an hint. It's something related to some ports and all those things.
No, already port is also it's open, right? It's not open.
Mm,
I'm
no, it's
confused.
not open. We have not used. So that is the reason when I was checking your VPCs on your screen, we have not used a firewall groups or firewall rules, as Zahir also had now
Oh,
put in. We have not used those, right? That is the reason why your traffic is getting uh, lost, right? Because we don't have a TCP port of 22 which supports SSH is enabled on your thing, whereas default VPC is allowed for all ports. Yes, but Zahir, while I guess he was creating when he was creating the VPC, he did not check box on the default firewall rules. That's the reason why he did not get created. But that's fine. I think that he had done it good for us only to help you understand. Yes. Yeah, you do not have a firewall rules for this, so that is the reason why you don't have that.
yes,
So now please go and add port 22 and then again try to do an SSH. And you help me, you tell us how you can do that because I had already shown you in a demo, right?
yeah. Okay, from the firewall, okay,
Oh,
we can add.
yes. Go to firewalls, then add firewall rule. Yes. Now put a name to it.
on the network, all instances.
Yeah, for now, let's not be much specific.
Here this host IP range is 0.0, right? It's okay.
Yes, go ahead with 0.0. Uh, no, yes, but you have to put a CIDR range, right? That's fine. That's entirely fine. But it should be a practice. You put the routing prefix also. Slash, no, remove that dot, slash 0. I guess an extra dot has been implemented before the slash. Yeah, remove that, please.
This was secondary. It's not required.
Yes, we will now allow TCP. That is the protocol. What does TCP stands for?
Transmission network protocol.
Yes. So we will also discuss what is the
Okay.
difference between TCP and UDP. But that's fine. Go ahead and create it. Now, you are trying. Have you reloaded?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, good. Let's see whether it's working.
Yes.
Yeah, allow it. So we have solved, I think, a generic problem. So this is the same typical problem. If I have discussed this problem, it should not be concentrated in your thoughts that okay, only port 22 and SSH things. Let's say now I was giving an example, right? Let's say my cloud SQL is not able to communicate with my VMs. So we will take our troubleshooting in this way, this approach only. Okay, first let me go and check whether in my firewalls is the permission on the ports open or not. We will take it in this direction, right? So this is the way of troubleshooting. So I just gave you a typical example of doing it. Yeah, there can be multiple other ways, but this should be the approach. Are my checkboxes or are my simple fundamentals are correct or not? We should take in this approach, right? Okay,
Yes.
I think we are very near, so quickly touch upon. Just take the private IPs and try to do a ping, right? You take the private IP of the default VPC and try to do a ping. It will be there on your cloud console only. No, it is there. Go to VMs. Yeah, here you see that internal IP. That's your basically the uh, internal private IPs. Go to your second machine.
So this is the second machine.
There's the tab open. Go to your Google uh, icon. I
Yes.
guess last or second. Yeah, last I guess.
This is the second.
Yeah. Try to ping it on the first and see what is the issue you are getting. Okay. Is VPC paired for you?
No.
Have you? Okay, that's fine. Try from and go to now default and try to do it on the second one.
What is the IP range?
Okay, that's fine. It's able to because we are part of the same project. It's working. That's fine. We will take that session in example in the next session. But quickly, I'll before you go ahead, right? I leave you for today. Can you stop sharing? I'll just talk about two. specific terms,
Yeah.
and then we'll start with the practice so that I can start with the practicals tomorrow. Can you make me the presenter? Is the admin present? Can you make me the presenter, please? So can you make me the presenter if you have joined back?
Because I already given you. Hello.
Right.
Which hello?
Oh, yeah, yeah. I think I do not have that privilege.
What's happening?
Is the admin there? Can you give me the presenter access? Okay, it's fine. Then we have also reached our time for today. Maybe I'll leave you. Do you guys have any questions? Okay, I think no was an answer. So maybe thanks a lot for today joining issue. Okay, mic issues it is facing. Okay, thanks a lot. We are done with today's session. Maybe we connect tomorrow and continue and try to complete networking. Uh,